How long do you plan on living, huh? Hurry up and turn into life insurance money, hag. John and Ken had the same way of laughing. It was an ugly smile, showing no regard for others as human beings. I hung my head. How selfish they are. Say something, old lady. You guys. It was troublesome to speak, but I started to talk. They believe I've had a serious illness, with only a few months left to live. And they had no feeling of sadness, not being caring of me. They were purely looking forward to my substantial life insurance payout that my death would bring. However, it is not true. Unfortunately, your wish won't come true. What did you say? John looks confused. I took out a doctor's report from my bag. And I handed it to John. He casually accepted it, but his face turned pale and he began to tremble after reading it. I'm Mirabelle Nathaniel. I've just celebrated my 36th birthday the other day. We live in a second-hand home with a small garden. My husband, John, works as an office employee. He's made a decent amount of progress in his career for his age, and his income isn't so bad. He's divorced before, with a son from his previous marriage. His son's name is Ken, and he is in the 7th grader this year. Even considering his challenging age, Ken dislikes me. He meets his biological mother once every 3 months. He seems unable to accept his parents' divorce and my marriage to his father. However, there's a side to John that makes it understandable why his ex-wife left him. I realized this sometime after marrying him. John and I had an arranged marriage. Working in a place with no single people around my age, I started to be encouraged to consider matchmaking after turning 30. Dating someone felt like a distant memory from my student days. So, I felt awkward and, thinking about marriage, I wondered if I could really have taken on the role of a wife. But being single for life sounds lonely too. After some hesitation, I decided to follow a matchmaker's advice just once. That's how I met John. About 2 years ago. Nice to meet you. Oh, yes. Hello. I was so nervous that I could hardly respond. Seeing this, John smiled kindly. Please relax. Thank you. You seem very calm, John. Yes. While nodding, John looked a bit sheepish. I've experienced divorce before. My previous marriage was also through matchmaking. So, I guess I'm just used to this. Really? I was surprised. John looked quite young. It seemed strange that he had been married before and even had a child. But thanks to John taking the lead, our relationship progressed smoothly. He proposed me on our 4th date. Will you be with me? Yes. His simple proposal somehow suited him perfectly. So, I gladly accepted it. The trouble began when I visited John's family. I don't need mother anymore. Right off the bat, Ken glared at me. It was obvious that he didn't want his father to remarry. I need a wife. John stated firmly. At that moment, I got carried away and I thought John was standing up for me. However, the reality became apparent soon after our marriage. That's terrible. I murmured in disbelief. John couldn't fold laundry. What is worse, he wouldn't put his clothes in a washing machine. He just left his clothes scattered all over the room. Feeling disturbed, I gathered his clothes and did the laundry. I hung them out on the balcony and went shopping. I'll make meatloaf tonight. Seeing pork on sale, I smiled. But my good mood was short-lived. Rain, no kidding. When I left the grocery store, the weather had taken a turn for the worse. It had been sunny just before. I jumped on my bike in a hurry. I hoped John or Ken got home. I wished that one of them would notice the laundry and take them inside the house. Arriving home, I saw John's shoes at the entrance. I felt relieved and walked down the hallway. I'm home. You went out in this weather? I was greeted by a skeptical voice in the living room. I went shopping. It was sunny when I left the house. After that, John seemed to lose interest in talking to me. Leaning on the sofa, John shifted his gaze to the TV. This comedian really says some funny stuff. But isn't it a bit crude? That's what makes it good. It's straightforward. John said, laughing heartily. I, holding shopping bags, headed to the kitchen and glanced out the window. The laundry was still out on the balcony, getting wet in the rain. Hey! I pointed towards the balcony. The laundry. It's getting wet. Yeah. It's not a yeah situation. If you noticed, you could have brought them in. I pleaded with John in distress. But John, still leaning on the sofa, showed no sign of moving. Now you're back, so you can bring them in. I went out to the balcony and started throwing the wet laundry into a basket. Everything was soaking wet. It made the drying effort pointless. Hilarious. Grab me a towel. By the time I finished bringing the laundry in, I was drenched. I couldn't walk into the room. But John was engrossed in the TV. Reluctantly, I crossed the living room with wet feet and dried myself off with a towel. As I changed out of my wet and heavy clothes, I thought to myself, needing a wife, that's what he meant. John wasn't trying to protect me. He just couldn't do any housework by himself and wanted to push it onto someone else. Were those words his true feelings? I think I'm starting to understand why his ex-wife left him. Right after I muttered, I sneezed. It's cold. The man who can sit watching TV and laughing while his wife is in such a condition is my husband. Ken is just like his father. There's a photo of him laughing with his biological mother in his room, but it's hard to find any similarities between them. He looks just like John and glares at me every day. I won't accept a hag like you as a mother. Hag? He really has a sharp tongue. He's picky about food too, always leaving his salad at breakfast. I wouldn't bother making it, but John likes veggies, so I have to prepare for the salad. This has been going on for about 2 years. I hoped that during this time, Ken might come to accept me. But those hopes were quickly dashed, and he still keeps his distance. How's school, Ken? It's okay, I guess. Ken said like that, and he shrugged his shoulders. Ken acts normal around his real dad, John. This means it's not just teenage rebellion. He's specifically tough on me because he dislikes me. Hey, can you talk to him? Ken's attitude is a bit much, don't you think? He's always been skeptical about the remarriage. Not John stepping in, Ken does whatever he wants. You don't have to clean my room. But I'm going there to pick up the laundry anyway. Even I explain, Ken retorts grumpily. You're just trying to find dirt on me, aren't you? No mother would do such a thing to her son, even if he's a stepson. I was utterly flabbergasted. Anyway, I'm just going to take the laundry. That's trespassing, hag. It's mom, not hag. Honestly, I have a hard time dealing with Ken. He's rude and takes everything negatively. It seems he determines to contradict everything I do. Even now, I couldn't enter his room due to his resistance. No choice then. I should pick up the laundry after Ken goes to school. What a waste of time to have to do the laundry twice. I shake my head in resignation. While I was washing dishes, Ken headed to the front door to go to school. There is no greeting. Just his footsteps fading down the hallway. Will he ever open up to me? I started to feel down. But there's no time to be down. A housewife is busy. I pick up the laundry basket and head to Ken's room. His desk is cluttered with what looks like school papers. What's all this? I don't like leaving things in disarray. Even though I know Ken would be mad, I decide to organize the papers. That's when I notice it. A class observation day? And it's today. What a surprise. He hadn't told me at all. He was probably planning to keep silent if I hadn't noticed it. I glance at the clock. The class observation is in 2 hours. If I rush the laundry, do my makeup, and change my clothes, I can just make it in time. But then I pause and think. Ken wouldn't be happy if I showed up. He's been silent about it because he doesn't want me be there. Well, I guess there's no helping it. I decided to spend the day as usual at home. I am curious about the class, but I don't want to make Ken upset anymore. With a heavy heart, I return to my chores. Time passes, and it was noon. I'm home. You're back early today. I was surprised, and John said it as if it were nothing. I took a day off. Why would you do that? I looked at him quizzically, and he answered in a light tone. It's obvious. It's for Ken's class observation day. You knew about it? I felt a tremor through my body. It was anger. Why didn't you tell me about it? Well, it's supposed to invite the kids' parents, right? John continued, seemingly exasperated by my argument. It's not you but his real mom who should be there. I am his mother now. It was a shock. It was not just Ken. But John too, he didn't consider me the housewife of this home. What am I to John, then? What am I in this house? Well, you're like a housekeeper, aren't you? You can never be Ken's mother, and if she hadn't left home, That's enough. I quit my chores, and went to my room to pack my all things, and prepared to leave the house. Hey, Mirabelle. I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce. Mirabelle. John's voice was filled with irritation as he called my name. I won't allow you to do as you want to. A housekeeper? Don't make fun of me. Ignoring John's attempt to stop me, I left the house. I called my parents on my smartphone. Hearing the situation, my mother was furious. Come back here right away. You shouldn't stay with someone like that. Okay. While hailing a taxi and getting in, I looked back at the house. John and Ken were terrible people. I couldn't take it anymore. I thought again. But at the same time, I couldn't help but worry about what would happen after I left home. John can't do household chores, and Ken still needs his parents' support. They reap what they sow. I muttered as if I was talking to myself and left my house behind. The first thing I did upon returning to my parents' house was to write a divorce notice. The problem is that John isn't willing to agree to the divorce. I haven't done anything wrong as a husband. He insisted. And he kept calling, persistently asking me to return home. I took in a woman who was past her prime. You should be grateful and devote yourself to the family. Disgusting. I hung up the phone. I rested my cheek on my hand at the table. Then, I noticed a piece of paper. Picking it up nonchalantly, I gasped. Only 3 months left. It was a life expectancy notice from the doctor. When I mentioned the prognosis, far from being sad, John's voice brightened. Even on the phone, I could see his smile. Really? Just 3 months? Are you happy about that? I sighed. Unable to hide his joy, John said. I thought I had a useless wife, even as a housekeeper, but you'd leave behind insurance money. Nobody said you were the beneficiary. When was I even signed up for the life insurance? John's meticulous planning sent shivers down my spine. After that, he stopped asking me to come back home. Instead, his regular question became, how long do you plan on living? As long as I have breath. That's how I respond to it. Huh. I got an indifferent response. He seems to have no interest in living me anymore. How is Ken doing? When he is asked like that, John is in a good mood instantly. We have pizza every night, and barbecue on every weekends. I can let him eat as much as he likes. It's all thanks to you. Don't eat too much and get fat. If you're worried, you should come and see for yourself. That's a point, I thought. I only have 3 months left. After that, it will be goodbye. Not wanting to have any regrets, I decide to return to the home where they are waiting. Leave them. My mother, unaware of the full situation, told me with a worried look. I shrugged. I won't be able to see them soon, just one last time. But still. Waving to my anxious mother, I headed to the house. What are you doing here? I encountered Ken at the entrance. He looked at me with clear annoyance. I was at a loss for words seeing how much Ken had changed. Ken, what's your weight now? I won't tell you. His cheekiness was intact, and Ken had gained weight. It is not that strange that he eats pizza every day. I couldn't imagine what state John is in. Entering the room, I was greeted by a foul smell and mountains of trash bags. What is this? Neither Dad nor I bother with taking out the trash. While saying this, Ken skillfully walked through the garbage bags. After some struggle, I reached the front of the sofa. I hesitated to sit down. The trash is on it. I tried to take it out once, but there was a nagging lady who said it wasn't the day for burnable trash. That's no excuse for this mess. I pinched my nose. My home, like its inhabitants, had changed beyond recognition. John returns home and he has a body shape as I expected. What brings you here now? You were the one who said I should come here and see you. John looks puzzled. Apparently, he forgets his own words. Now that you're here, how about cleaning up? And make dinner. With brazen faces, they said. I sighed and nodded in agreement. Yes. Oh, you've decided to fulfill your duties as a wife before saying goodbye, haven't you? Not a wife, but as a housekeeper, right? I glared at them with heavy sarcasm. They, of course, remained unfazed. In fact, they smirked and said, "When are you going to die, huh? Hurry up and become life insurance money, old hag." Their words cut through the foul smell in the room, hitting me hard. I hung my head low. "Say something, hag. You guys." While feeling incredibly empty, I opened my mouth. "Unfortunately for you, your wish won't come true." "What did you say?" John's round face frowns in confusion. I pull out a document from my bag. It is a doctor's diagnosis. "Read this." I thrust the diagnosis at John. With a bewildered face, he skimmed through the document. "Oh, it really says 3 months." John laughed heartily, while I stood there with my arms crossed. "Look at the name on it." "What?" "It's just your name there, right?" "Look closely." I repeated. Reluctantly, John read the name written there. His complexion changed in an instant. The color drained from his face, turning him pale. "What is this? Dad?" Ken seemed to sense something was off with his father. "What's wrong, Dad? Why is my name on this diagnosis?" John shouted, leaving his hands off the document. The diagnosis fluttered to the ground. Landing atop a trash bag, the document starkly pronounced John's limited time left. Nobody ever said it was about my remaining time. "Huh?" With a baffled expression and voice, Ken looked at me. I addressed both Ken and John. "Huh? The prognosis is for you, John." "Don't lie!" John cried out in a tearful voice. "I'm healthy. Why does this tell me my life remaining time?" "You have 3 months left. That's why I came to see you one last time." I decided to indulge their whims just enough, so I wouldn't have regrets. "So, it's Dad who's leaving? And the insurance money that will be paid out is for Dad? I'm the beneficiary." My voice was unexpectedly cheerful. "So, I'll stay with you as a wife until you're gone. But after that, it's goodbye. You should be happy, Ken, you'll be rid of me." "Wait a minute." In a panic, Ken said. "What about me after Dad's gone? You need to take responsibility and raise me properly." "I'm not your mother." I echoed the words which they once hurled at me back to Ken. He crouched down as if he is frightened. "You're just going to take the money and leave." "That's right. But you know, that's exactly what you guys were planning to do with my insurance money. I don't want to get fat, so I won't indulge in dining out like you did." I turned to leave the living room. "Hey! Are you that worried about the future?" I was utterly dismayed. Ken is more worried about his future than his father's limited time left. He doesn't care about his father at all. You can be with your real his mother, right? It's impossible, she remarried and said she couldn't take me in. I couldn't muster any sympathy for him. If he had shown even the slightest sadness about our parting, it might have been different. "Well, that's how it is then." I waved my hand and left the room. They were busy with their despair and said nothing. I proceeded with my preparations. After John is gone, the house will be sold. Ken will probably end up in a facility. Knowing this, Ken has been contacting me daily. "Think it over. Hey, don't abandon me." "Abandon?" I said coldly. "Abandon? It was you who didn't accept me as family. It's different now." His rebuttal was not enough. "From now on, I'll call you Mom. I don't want you to call me like that." I hung up the phone then. I'm busy. There's a lot to do before John is gone. I started listing the necessary procedures. Then, another call from Ken came. When I answered, he was clearly crying. "Since then, Dad hasn't gone to work, we're running out of money. And? Please help. I'll do anything you say." Such a cliché word it is. Dad won't work and he's not well. I want to take him to the hospital, but I don't know what to do. It's too late now," I said with a hint of regret in my voice. When the diagnosis was written, John was already in a terminal state. But as a kind gesture, the doctor didn't inform him of the truth. Instead, the doctor sent me the diagnosis. I was perplexed when I received it. He seemed so healthy. The doctor noted that the disease is characterized by a gradual weakening without significant symptoms showing. There's nothing more we can do for him now. "Then, Dad is really going to..." Ken couldn't finish his sentence. But I think Ken would be better off living in a facility with a structured routine rather than his current self-destructive lifestyle. The food there would be nutritionally balanced. Dad's not eating. He says he has no appetite. He just gives me $5 every day and tells me to eat something. Are you eating properly? I buy the bread at the bakery store at school. Plus, I'm doing a part-time job. It's against school rules, but I've lied about my age to work. Ken's voice was hesitant. However, I felt relieved. He's managing to get by on his own, more mature than I thought. Like a neighbor concerned for a local kid, I felt reassured. But then, suddenly, "You heartless witch!" What's with the sudden outburst? I was confused by Ken's sudden anger. "You're just going to abandon me while I'm struggling. You're the one abandoning your father." But that's... Ken stumbled over his words. I continued in an advisory tone. "If you had accepted me as a family member, I would have helped you. Or if you had shown any concern for your father, maybe I could have forgiven you. But Ken is only thinking about himself. Yet, he demands others to care for him. That's too convenient, isn't it? That's why I'm not going to help you." "Wait! Hey, help me! Please help me!" Ken's voice of anguish feels hollow to me. I hung up the call. Even though Ken kept calling afterward, I didn't respond. While helping out with chores, I'm staying at my parents' house. I ignore calls from them both. Then, someone impatient came to visit me at my parents' house. It was John. "Don't you feel sorry for me?" "What are you talking about?" His opening words made me frown. I was under the impression I had only 3 months to live and made a big fuss about it. That's just who I am. Of all things, he was being defiant. It's the worst, I thought. But you are a good person. You can't possibly stand by me and not feel sorry for my misfortune, can you? You are really self-centered and think about just yourself. People can't always be good. At least, I'm not like that anymore. I don't feel the slightest pity for John. All I can remember is the humiliation I suffered in that house. "When I was taking the laundry inside in the rain, what were you doing? I didn't ask for help, but you should have just handed me a towel. It would have been enough. But you didn't even do that." "Sorry, I wasn't thoughtful enough." It was an insincere apology, and just trying to placate me. He's just waiting for my storm of displeasure to pass. That's unforgivable. I realized something. You're not just a housekeeper. You were a good wife. What do you want to say? Listening to his ingratiating tone made me feel sick. I no longer harbor any feelings for this man other than anger and disgust. I want to spend the remaining 3 months as a family of 3. Huh? I couldn't help but be skeptical of his polished words. He probably wants me to take care of him during his remaining time. But he can't express his true feelings because he's trying to gauge my mood. So he decorates his words. "Your wife is your ex-wife, isn't it?" "No, you're the one who's important to me." "Important?" I almost burst out laughing. "The only person you care about is yourself. That's why you can say such things. If you really care about me, you might tell me to get a divorce." "Mirabelle. Please go home." My voice was cold and distant. "If we get divorced, you won't be able to receive the insurance money. I'm not interested in money that comes at someone else's expense." He hadn't even understood that. Yet, John continued as if the insurance money was his trump card. "You're actually looking forward to me being gone, aren't you? Be honest." "I'm fine with that." So what? My irritation at his insensitivity and misunderstanding were going up. "I don't want the money. I'd rather get divorced right here than be forced to take care of you." "Are you serious?" John seemed incredulous. I repeated, "I'm getting a divorce. Don't involve me in your life anymore." "Mirabelle, don't pretend to be strong. I'm likely to find my next marriage partner soon." "This is true." I told him straight. John was stunned. I decided to share my recent news with him. I have a cousin a year younger than me. He knows my situation, offered advice, and proposed to me. "Even though I'm your husband?" John raised his voice in anger. But I remained calm. "He said he was concerned because I'm with you." "How did it come to this?" John looked up at the ceiling, seemingly lost. I know the cousin who proposed to me very well. He's always been responsible. He is a likable and reliable leader, completely opposite to John. That makes me want to accept his proposal. To me, John is nothing more than a hindrance now. If you truly care about me, please agree to a divorce. Are you sure about this? You won't get any money. Are you okay with that? Even now, John is still trying to lure me with the bait of insurance money. Even though that bait doesn't work for me. I don't mind. So be it. Don't come to regret this, got it? Leaving those parting words, John walked away. I sighed in relief once his footsteps faded away. I conveyed to my cousin Tom that John had agreed to the divorce. That's good to hear. Tom smiled and relieved. But are you sure? About what? I'm older, and you could find someone better, couldn't you? I voiced my long-held concern. Tom shook his head and amused. Waiting to be with you made me miss my chance to marry young. Tom laughed mischievously, saying he wanted me to take that responsibility. I found myself smiling along. Since then, John hasn't reached out at all. I have some idea about what's going on with the two of them because Ken has been calling. It seems John, who fell ill after I left, is spending his days at home due to lack of money for hospitalization. As a consequence of relying on the insurance money I would leave behind after my departure and living lavishly, he's now saddled with a huge debt. How am I supposed to live with this amount of debt? The pain in his voice was palpable. But since it's the result of his own reckless calculations, I don't feel pity for him. Tom had moved to the city in his 20s but recently returned to our area. You really do have that city vibe. I mused, feeling a bit intimidated while walking next to him. Tom's attire is sophisticated, and most people we pass turn to look at him. Yet, Tom himself maintains a serene expression. I've reached this age without confessing to the girl I like. I didn't know that. I had never felt nor considered romantic feelings from Tom. He was a compatible friend, not a love interest. Do I still just seem like a friend to you? Tom asked anxiously. His question caught me off guard as I was just pondering over it. It's different now. Really? Yes. I'm trying to like him. I also want to love him. I will live a life with Tom. It seems full of hope. Let's make a fresh start, Tom. Same here. We laughed and shook hands. It was childish yet promising gesture. But now I have a premonition. I will fall in love with this man in the future.